Afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm April Whitlock with Fundanoodle, and so excited that we are having our second Fundanoodle 5 today with the amazing Dr. Sharon Jones, who I have been introduced to through a wonderful networking group here in Charlotte, and so excited to have her share her passion about the importance of computer science and it really how it is accelerates academic excellence for children, especially when you start young. So, Dr. Jones, thank you so much for being with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and honored that you asked me to be a part of the show.
Well, great. So the way this works, if you're new, and it's only our second one, so you might be very new, we invite early education experts to join us for what we call Fundanoodle 5. So 5 questions we're going to ask about a specific topic and let the expert give their wisdom for you so you can learn from them. And I always learn a ton when we do these, and that's part of what our goal is with not only our hands-on learning products, but with our mission is to provide parents and caregivers all the tools that they need to understand how all the different pieces fit into place. Now, I know some of you probably saw the marketing about this, or that the topic, is accelerating academic excellence with computer science, and you probably stopped and was like, wait a minute. Isn't April the one that's constantly saying, put down the screen, put down the screen, put down the screen, put the pad away, use your hands, use your hands, use your hands? And I'm like, yes, I am. But it's amazing how all these things that you can do to prepare for academic excellence with computer skills do tie back to hands-on learning and all of the skills that we really want to see little learners developing with their visual perception. So to give you a little background, so Dr. Jones is the CEO and the founder of the DOT Consulting and the Dottie Rose Foundation, where she leads and implements tech education innovation. Dr. Jones has been in education for over 15 years as a career and technical education teacher in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system and Wake County schools, and is also an industry trainer. She has taught courses in computer programming, web design, e-commerce, computer science principles, and SAS programming. She has presented and been published nationally and internationally on data analytics, educational practices, and technology. Her book, A Recipe for Success Using SAS University, How to Plan Your First Analytics Projects, is being used in classrooms across the country. So we are excited to have her here and ask her 50 questions about accelerating academic excellence with computer science. So, ready for question number 1?
I'm ready for question number 1.
Okay, it's start from the beginning. What is computer science?
So computer science is the study of computers. Well, or let me say that in a way. You're not really studying an actual hard drive, but it's studying the processes and the things that are associated around computers, machines, etc. So, but when we think about computer science as a whole, the pure definition really is to help students understand or help individuals understand computational and critical thinking to be able to apply those skills to a machine. We have to remember that a machine is just an extension of who we are as humans. The machine doesn't actually have a brain. We, as the individuals, have to actually tell the machine what we want it to do. So when we're thinking about computer science, we're thinking about all things that revolve around an inanimate object that we want it to do something for us. So that could be a computer. It could be a tablet. It could be a smartphone. It could be a robot. It could be a watch. It can be anything that's a piece of technology that we are using as an extension of ourselves, and we want to tell it to do something.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about studying computer science, people often jump to the conclusion that it's all about coding. Well, coding is a part of it. That is, and it is a fundamental part of it. But before you even get to the coding piece, you need to understand the concepts that actually fuel computer science. And those things include understanding what is a variable, what is a conditional statement, what is a loop, what is an algorithm. All of those things are really important to understand before you even pick up one of your little fingers and start typing on a computer, because it goes back to much of what you and I have talked about in the past. You have to have the skill set to know what you want at the end, and then you reverse it back.
Exactly.
And you need to know that it's like exercising your hands. You've got to exercise your brain before you even start to the screen. So for me, what I think a lot about too is that computer science is actually being able to allow students to be and people to be creators of technology and not just consumers.
I love that, because that's where I think we sometimes a wall with some parents, because what we see is just the consuming of the technology.
Yes.
We're just seeing an app or handing something, and not the actual creation. Creation comes. We have a book that you have a book called "I Can Write My Own Story," and I recently I've been sharing it with some folks in different STEM programs, and they love it. The very first page is an algorithm. Basically, it's pictures of Max wants to bake a cake, and it's got the different pictures there, and the child has to figure out, okay, how do I piece, which order do we go to get to the cake? So I love that idea of thinking about computer science holistically and thinking about there's an end game, and this is what I want my robot or my smartphone or my watch to do, and then back up and then figure out how to make it happen. So the creativity.
So think about it this way: like if you wanted that robot to bake a cookie for you or bake cookies for you, which is an amazing example of an algorithm. So you're glad you brought that up, because actually in my book, I talk all about how cooking is nothing but data and recipes or algorithms. And how do the end game is we want a cookie, right? How do we want that robot to do the cookie? All right, well, we got to back up and think, all right, well, what's the first thing we do to bake cookies? And so writing the algorithm is the most important part. The actual writing of the algorithm and then the execution of that algorithm is called a program or automation.
Right.
So once you have what you want it to do, because you have to tell that robot, right? So you write the algorithm out, and then once that's sort of played out, and here's the thing that some people also don't realize. When we bake cookies, we may do it right the first time, but how many times have you put the wrong amount of vanilla in? Or maybe you didn't have sugar, so you're like all fiddly sticks. So you got to use applesauce or whatever it is. I mean, you've had to problem solve, do a quick pivot while you're standing there baking cookies. You have to account for those same things when you're trying to write an algorithm or a program for a robot. And you may have to do it 2 or 3 times before you actually get it to do what you want it to do.
Right. So. Excellent. Cool. Awesome. So thank you so much. Let's move on to question number 2. So now we know what computer science is. Why is it so important for individuals, whether they're homeschool families or classroom teachers or parents and caregivers, to add in computer science into their educational sphere and programs and projects that they do with their little learners?
Well, we have to think about the current culture that we're living in right now. It used to be that technology was something that we could choose to use. And if we didn't use it, we would be okay. You could still figure out how to accomplish goals. And to a point, that's still the way it is now for a while. But we are moving at an extremely rapid pace. And technology is going to be, and the integration of that technology, and I mean things like artificial intelligence, I mean Internet of Things. We already are doing Internet of Things. But that is going to be a very large part of what young people are going to be doing as they move forward. They are not going to have an option of whether or not technology is a part of what they do. Now,
even today, even right now, kindergarten, elementary school, all of the testing and has EOG testing. Everything's moved from just a year ago, pencil and paper, to all online. So it is just part of their life.
It is. And so what we want those children to be able to be creators of what's going to happen next, and not just consumers. Because like what you were saying, I don't want people just to pick up and just use the iPad. I want them to figure out a way to how to make that iPad do things for them that it didn't do before.
Right.
So to me, not just to me, but the reason the purpose of this, think about learning a foreign language. When are we most apt to learn something? When we are young.
When we're young.
We have our brains are still developing. We're able to adapt to more flexibility. Learning the concepts of computer science, learning a programming language is no different than learning a new foreign language.
Yep.
If you teach it to young people young, they will absorb it and begin to understand the functionality and the importance of it.
Yep.
It will only make them a stronger student, both academically and intelligent, and with their intelligence, because they're able to be able to say, okay, let me think about this. You know, I do want to bake cookies, but there's
Right.
going to come a time when we probably aren't baking cookies all the time by ourselves. Maybe we
Right.
do have some robot that's going to help us. Robots are not going to take over the world, everybody. Don't get panicked. We still have to have people, but there's going to be things that are going to change with how we interact with inanimate objects.
Right.
It's coming, right?
Right.
So I want to empower them to understand that this is going to be a part of their life. I don't want them to be scared of it. I want people to embrace it.
Yeah.
So it's that problem solving and that critical thinking. If you can do that,
Mm-hmm.
and you can apply that skill set to computer science, you can apply it to learning a new language, you can apply it to learning mathematics, science, and honestly, science, math, English, and social studies are all what makes up computer science.
Yeah.
You need to be able to it's the application of all of those.
Yeah.
It's understanding if you can write good instructions, if you can write great content, you're able to create great applications, great instructions, great games. If you can mathematically compute things, you can take that computational thinking onto a technological device.
Yep.
Science is all about trial and error. That's exactly what computer science is.
Yeah.
Just application.
It's fascinating. That's fascinating to think about all of it. And it just goes back to, even talking about a technology piece that's so new and it's such a new world, and we're raising, a generation of kids that it's just everything to them. What you're saying is nothing takes away from the thinking. Thinking, the learning how to think becomes just the most crucial thing and the biggest gift that we can give our children. And when they're young, and being able to, learn how to manipulate things on their own and how to communicate well, and all of those things contribute to being a good thinker, which obviously is going to contribute to being good at computer science and academically overall. So that the thinking piece is what keeps jumping out to me, is that we're not asking kids we don't want children to just kind of be able to regurgitate information, if you will. We want them to be able to think about it and process it, and be creative about, well, what happens if this happens? All I can imagine when you were talking about the different things is when, see little children on a playground, and they, if there's water, if there's something, and they're like, well, what happens if I pour it in here? Or then what happens if I pour it in here? Or if I put a rock in front of that pipe? And just letting them explore and, and figure out how things work and cause and effect is just huge, I think.
And then you could think about, well, what if I put a sensor on that rock?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if I put a sensor on that rock and then I recorded how much water is actually touching that sensor?
Right.
Then you start collecting data. And then here's the other part. Then it becomes not so scary. As adults, we begin to, as we get older, you have new perceptions, you have new thought processes.
Yeah.
And you begin to associate things with it being difficult or easy. When you're a child, you don't have that. A lot of people are worried about, people are scared about data. They're scared about computer science. They're scared about coding. But I have a 3-year-old. I taught him how to use Scratch one time. I went back to go get dressed the other day. I came back in. The man had created a spinning sprite within literally 2 minutes.
That's awesome.
And he said, Mommy, look at my algorithm. And I'm like, yes.
But success.
But he wasn't scared of it. He wasn't scared that he was going to break the computer. He took control of it and used it and created. Granted, it was a very small thing, but I thought to myself, that's what I want them to see.
Yeah,
I want them to see
awesome.
that problem solved. And he said, well, and then he said to me, well, this isn't working. I want it to do da da da. I think he wanted to spin and then like blow a bubble or something. I said, all right, well, let's think about it. And so we had a conversation, but it relates to me the same way as when children are learning how to write. Yeah. They have to take their time. They have to practice. And then that critical thinking is exactly what they're going to do when they think about how they're going to code their next application or a comic strip or create a new video. Yeah,
whatever that they do, you're right. Like if it starts that 3-4-year-old learning how to which way writing from the top down, and which way what do I use, diagonals or curves or or straight lines when I'm,
Yes.
all
And
these
where do you want it
pieces.
to go? Where's it going to go on the page? Where's it going to sit
Yeah,
on the page? Same thing happens. To be honest with you, we are doing our children a disservice if we do not teach them some type of computational thinking at a young age,
right.
because
Exactly.
their
Amen.
whole world is just going to be involved with tech. And if we don't give them that skill set, we
Right.
are setting them up for failure.
I agree 100%. So great kind of what I was thinking transitioned into our next question. And one of the things that struck me when you were talking about your son is that a lot of times, the technology gets a bad rap around young kids because of oh, they're always on their phones now. They're always like this. I mean, I just literally had 14 teenagers just leave my house, to go to the park on the last day of school. And lovely, none of them had their phones in their hands, but normally they do, kind of there. So what I loved what you were talking about teaching the coding and talking about the coding is that you were talking, you were interacting, you were having a conversation with your son. So
Right.
in this digital age that we've created, why is it still so important to be unplugged, especially with young children, to do unplugged activities with them?
So you still need that interaction piece. The way in
Yeah.
which I want you to think about this. The reason why we're so addicted to our phones is it increases the dopamine in our brains, right? I mean,
Okay.
it's like
Yeah.
a drug, right? You hear
Yeah.
the
Oh,
bingo
it
off
is.
and you're like, woo, right? But how do you know that? Part of that is because we learned that as children, there were things that set us off that made us excited, right?
Right.
So, you know, putting the phone down is really important, because
Hmm.
the only way you're going to really understand what's happening in that phone is if you put it down.
Right.
So for me, what I talk a lot about and what I do mostly with young people, with the children, and whenever you are teaching anything that has to do with computer, well, let me just put it this way: whenever you're teaching anything, there needs to be some kind of interactive component.
Yes.
Just giving a
Exactly.
child a worksheet is not going to teach them how to
No,
multiply 3 times 3.
it
They
is
need a
not at all.
manipulative. They need something that's, our brains are multifaceted. We need to be able to
Right.
touch, feel, see, hear, all those things. We got to move them, right?
Right.
So unplugged activities, the essence of those is taking the computer science concepts off of the computer.
Right.
What happens inevitably, or what's happening, and that's beginning to change because of the movement with unplugged, but people think, oh, I need to create an app, and they immediately sit down at the computer and like, oh, let me start typing. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Well, actually, that's completely incorrect. You don't do that when you sit down and you start figuring out how you're going to bake a cookie. No, no, no. You go and you research, you find the recipe, then you go and buy the supplies, and then you grab the
Right.
materials. And same thing needs to happen when you're thinking about learning how to be a coder or be a computer scientist. So an
Right.
unplugged activity, a good example would be something like plant a seed. All
Mm-hmm.
right, we know in our heads how to plant a seed, right? For the most part.
Right.
All right, but maybe there's somebody out there who doesn't. And sometimes the young kids don't really know how to plant a seed. They get a
Right.
general idea, but they don't really know how to plant a seed.
Right.
So writing an algorithm for step one, step one is to pick up a cup. Step
Mm-hmm.
two, pick up a shovel. Step three, you got to get a bag of soil. You go through the steps, and you are very deliberate in that process,
Right.
and the kids actually plant the seed. Like they have.
Right.
So what I usually do is have kids write out the algorithm. Or another
Okay.
good example would be like making trail mix, where you
Mm-hmm.
have to
Oh,
write out
that's
the
a good one.
trail mix. Like
Yeah.
you need a half a cup of peanuts, a third of a cup of M&Ms. And these are things you can do
Right.
with your kids right now. Have
Mm-hmm.
them write out what they think, and then see if someone else can follow that algorithm.
Oh, that's a
So,
great idea
right.
to have them kind of say, okay, what do you think happens? Let's write this out,
Mhm.
and then turn around and say, hey, does this work? Can we walk through this together? And
Right.
will we get what we want at the end?
Right. And if they can't, then they need to go back and edit the
Yeah.
algorithm.
Right.
So that, like, especially with trail mix is a pretty good one, because they will forget to say like where the materials are,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to really literally think, okay, I have to go to the cabinet, open the cabinet. Oh, which way do
Right.
I open the cabinet? Right, left? Another good example is like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorites, and lots of people that have done peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Um, Another good unplugged activity to teach that allows them to learn. So that's an algorithm, and through that
Mm-hmm.
algorithm process, you're going to realize that there's a loop or there's a conditional statement. When
Right.
I say conditional statement, I mean if I do this, then.
Yeah.
So if I put a half a cup of M&Ms in the trail mix, then I can add Raisinets. I mean, whatever it is. Okay,
Right.
whatever it is. Okay.
That's go to the next step.
Right. If I don't put the M&Ms in, then I can't move forward.
Right.
So think about like even like if you're playing a maze game, if you go straight and you hit, when you're doing like those little maze things with your pen
Yeah.
pencil,
Mm-hmm.
like you may hit the little air, like the stopping point, the wall, and you're like, oh, got to reverse and then go
Yeah.
back.
Got to come back.
But another good one to do to teach them is we all love Alexa. All right. Alexa runs on conditional statements.
Mm-hmm.
If April asks Alexa, play Pandora, then Alexa is going to play Pandora.
She's going to right now. She just
you hear me?
she lit up.
And what she's done is she's registered in her mind. She's held what we call an accumulation back there. She's held on to what you listened to last time and will pick it up right where you left off.
Right.
It's just an if she does this, right?
Yeah.
But it also is like a loop. All right. So if you ask Alexa to whatever, you can ask her to do something for so many times.
Yeah.
But the best example about looping is in music. We all love music. So if you are with your kid, you can do an unplugged activity and teach them all about loops by looking at a song, their favorite song, and deciphering what are the verses versus what is the chorus.
Okay.
The chorus is a loop and a function because it plays when you tell it to play and it plays the same thing.
Right.
So it's a loop. So you may loop the chorus. The best example I have is Sam Smith's "Stay With Me." Stay with me. He repeats the chorus 3 times. There's only 2 verses. Actually, he repeats the chorus 7 times. 2 verses, and it's a Grammy-winning song.
That's a different topic.
But it's like all the elements of programming. It tells a story. It loops it because we like as humans repetition.
Yeah.
There it is.
That's a good unplugged activity to do in the car when songs come on in the car when you're traveling this summer with the kiddos.
Yeah.
And talking about that.
When you start learning it with programming, you're not like, oh my, what do you mean by it's going over and over again? Well, it goes over and over again in the song. Like some of the most popular song, Little Bunny Foo Foo, Running Through the Forest, right?
Yeah.
People remember it because it loops over and over again.
And that's the thing. You think, well, go back and think about all the nursery rhymes. I mean, Old MacDonald had a farm. I mean, how many times did you say E-I-E-I-O? And, you go through it, and you're right. There is that repetition there, which makes total sense because we know with especially with young children, this is the controversy, I guess, right now is that, we're creating this environment where our kids are getting instant gratification and they're, doing things so quickly and they just want to move on to the next when for what they need to do is constant repetition.
Yes.
These days, to learn, to really learn. Yeah.
We learn things in sets of 7. So whenever you're learning something, you have to do it at least 7 times before it even penetrates your brain.
That I did not know that number, but that's great. And that's a good thing to remember when you're talking to the kids.
Like I remember when I was first teaching coding, and people would give me like when I was trying to like teach something, I don't know, anything, and they'd give me like one exercise. I'm like, seriously? They're no way, Jose. Not only that, you have to repeat it, but then you have to make it a bigger part of a whole. So it's just like when you're thinking about planting a seed or baking a cookie or listening to a song, it's a bit like a verse is a bigger part of the whole song.
Right.
It's that part of build up. So when you're teaching something like even like handwriting, you can write out the letters 100 times, but until you start formulating sentences, you're just basically regurgitating.
Right.
Same thing happens in coding. I mean, you can learn a couple lines of code, but until you start seeing that full application piece, it doesn't really mean much. Right?
Doesn't mean much.
You have to repeat it, and then you got to apply it.
Right there. So, where do you see technology innovation in the next 5 years? I know it's fast and furious, but what do you see happening?
I see that we're going to see a larger influx of the artificial intelligence. We're going to see a lot more of automation happening, things like Alexa, things that are going to pop up on our computers. We are going to see a huge influx so it's already happening now, but the way in which data controls our lives.
Okay. Yeah.
Innovate the amount of material that or information that we supply is going to fuel the next innovative pieces that are going to come down the line. So if they
So
see
beyond
us,
the Facebook ads that know exactly what I just looked at on Amazon, beyond those,
beyond those, but how we interact with
mm-hmm.
technology and the data that's collected from that will begin to fuel what the next innovative pieces will come. It's hard to say where we're going to be in 5 years because everything has happened so fast.
Yeah.
But I definitely see that AI now, and I don't mean that to be, I'm not saying that for people to be fearful. You don't need to fear. Don't fear. People are like, oh my God, all these things are going to take over our jobs. Nah. You
we still need the
like,
people.
There's a commercial out there that shows all the machines taking over for the people.
And
I'm like, that's somewhat right. But there still has to be somebody that mans that machine. That machine does not have a brain. And it only can work if we are the ones that are we have the power to tell the machine what to do. And we can turn that machine off.
Right.
Remember, technology is only on and off. It's binary, right? There's like
find the off button.
We have that power. So yes, it's going to be
power
great if we tell Alexa to go over and clean our refrigerator or go to the grocery store or whatever it might be. Because it's convenience purposes. But it's always going to come back to us doing that. I mean, the activity.
Right. Intel.
I don't know. It trips me out. I'm like, really, people?
It does. It is kind of funny to see some of the fear, but it's an age thing too. I mean, it's just like, my kids are growing up, with Alexa and they're just, it's different but they're used to it. But I love what you said about technology being binary on and off, because it just made me immediately think about my my online tracking and things for my daughter's internet. And I love the fact that with the Verizon family base that they have the big button. It's like they just need an internet break, right? And you just click that button and you just shut down the internet for them. And that's really what we all need.
The whole concept behind that is a conditional statement.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you turn the button off, then the internet goes off.
We're going to take everything off. Yep.
Right. And that just goes back because somebody asked the question, can I control my kid's internet?
You're right.
And Verizon's like, yes, you can.
Let's figure that out.
The power. We can authorize what access they have based on your plan.
Right.
And
you have to put the plan
the way in which they set up the algorithm, and then it executes only if you hit a certain button.
Yeah.
And so again, it goes back to a question that you have.
Right.
How can you better to make your life a little better and control them? And like you said, they are very addicted to the phones. So that's a great, but let me, before I start babbling, it just goes back to us still asking questions. As long as there's questions, there will always be jobs. There will always be innovation happening.
Right.
Period. The machine is never going to be able to do everything.
Machine's not going to take over. It's just going to be more. We're going to have more convenience and easier access to things as we go.
Right. And the kid, and if we are able to empower our kids now, they will create things that are far better than we could ever imagine.
Right. And that's one of the biggest takeaways I'm, getting from this is it's just like everything else, I think, that falls into this early childhood development bucket, is that the more you do and interact and interact with your kids and ask questions and get them in environments where they do get messy, like let them bake cookies and walk through that, or get them in environments, go outside, and the whole if then. I mean, to me it sounds like being a really good computer science is like being a really good parent, because you're teaching the consequences of if this then this, just like we do a lot in parenting. So now we're here in June, and tomorrow's the last day of public school where we are here in Charlotte. And I know on one hand that's great because May's over, but on the other hand it's like, oh my gosh, it's summer. So what are some ideas? So our last question, number 5, what are some recommendations, some ideas of some summer opportunities that parents can do to really start helping students learn these computer skills outside the classroom?
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a couple of things that they can do just immediately off the bat. I mean, first of all, you could, when you go to the grocery store, have your child start taking tally points of the things that you purchase.
Okay.
So make a list, and so if you go to the grocery store and every time you go to the grocery store you buy milk blah, 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 whatever it is, milk, eggs,
Right.
bread.
Uh-huh.
Make that list, and every time you go to the grocery store, start making tally marks. Okay, those are data points.
Data collection.
Data
all
collection.
right.
And the other thing is, when you start doing that, you'll begin to see that your efficiency around the grocery store is extremely inefficient.
Yeah.
Because you have milk, and then you have applesauce on your list, right? Well, milk's at the back of the store, applesauce is at the front of the store.
Right.
You'll begin to learn how to automate your process by collecting the data points and figuring out where you're going in the grocery store, and you will increase your efficiency. Let me say that relates directly to people that buy groceries online. The reason why that's so effective is that the people of the grocery store know how to buy your groceries in an efficient manner and then put it at the front. Okay.
Right.
The other thing is, you can start looking, like when you go to restaurants, you can start thinking about how are you paying the bill? What technology is being used to pay that bill? What is the app? Are you using Venmo? Are you using PayPal? But even with the restaurant data, one of the things that I think is really interesting is asking questions. What's your top selling dish?
Yeah.
Just ask them. They'll tell you why. And then you start having these questions, right? Why is it important? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. A couple other things you is plant a garden. Start planting a garden. Figure out the steps it takes. And the other thing is, after you plant the garden, what is the algorithm that's going to maintain that garden?
Right.
Now, I know it's a little bit late, but you can still plant a few things and see. And the other thing is, here's the science part of it. Is it going to work?
Right.
Is it going to work? Other things that I would think about, of course, is singing songs. Write a song, write a book. Think about in a book the beginning, middle, and end, because when you have a good book, it's the same thing as creating a really great software program.
Right.
Whenever someone's playing a game, they want to have a good middle, beginning, and end. You got to have some kind of conflict in the middle.
Right.
Those are great things to do offline. In regards to things that have to do, like if you actually want to enroll your child in something that is computer science related, I mean, the other thing I can think about is there's lots of camps out there, even like cooking camps. I mean, have them go to a cooking camp. That's fine. But have them come back and tell you about, well, what did they make, and what was use the vocabulary word. What was the algorithm you used today?
Right.
They'll tell you.
Right.
Once you introduce that vocabulary word.
Yeah.
But for camps, I can promote a few things. One is my foundation itself, Dottie Rose, which was named after my grandmother. My grandmother was a very large force in my life and empowered me to be anything I ever wanted to be. And I want to do the same for other young girls, because women in tech and women in computing is very small and in between. That we are not a huge presence in the world. Today, I taught a business statistics class. You want to know how many females were in the room?
You and one other?
Nope, just me.
Just you.
It was me and 17 boys.
Oh.
Yep. Yep. We got to change that, people. We got to change it.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a couple things. First is I'm partnering with my dear friend April here, and we're going to be doing a camp in July.
Yep.
Where we're going to be teaching them how to write in the digital age. So they're going to learn all about the skill set of writing, and how do they then turn that and make it writing that's going to be powerful in this world of digitalization, right?
Yep.
That's in July, and we're going to be hosting that at Coco Tiv, which is the new co-working space here off of Park Road.
Yep.
And then that'll be for young people, boys and girls between 6 and 9. And then we have one camp in August that will be with the Etang group for middle school girls. And we're going to talk about art and computing. And I want people to understand that all art is based off of a grid, and that's exactly the way your computer screen is a grid.
Right. It's just
made up of pixels. And so we're going to teach them how to do design with code. And that's going to be the first week in August, and that's going to be at the Etang group, August 6th through the 10th, I think, is whatever it is. But those are some camps. You also can look anywhere that would be offering something where the children, and another thing is, I did sign my son up for art camp this summer, because understanding the process of being able to draw and figure out, well, how do I draw ahead?
Right.
When you are constructing a computer program, you have to be able to draw and apply the same concepts that you're doing at an art camp, just have to do it on the computer.
Yeah. That's great. I think the art and thinking about the some of the baking camps for young kids too. Both of those, from our perspective, they're awesome because that's getting them using their hands in the way so they're staying involved with the hands and the hand-eye coordination.
Yes.
And we're really big on making sure that we're developing the bilateral as well, so that when that's the cool thing about cooking or planning is you're using one hand to do one thing and one to do the other, and that's helping the brain as well. So all those ideas are great, and it's getting parents to think beyond. It's not just signing my kid for a coding camp this summer. It's understanding at a young age, start working with them, because I think a lot of this is a combination of reminding parents what's important, but then also educating them about it is the same thing. I mean, it wasn't until the last couple months that we've been working together that I really started realizing it all fits together. It is baking cookies is great.
Well, here's
thank
the thing.
you so much.
If they go to let me just say that, if they go to the baking camp and then they go
Yeah.
to a coding camp, all those skills they learn in learning how to bake a cookie are the same skills they're going to do in trying to figure out how to program a computer.
Right.
Still, you got to think. You still have to use your hands. You have to use your eyes. But they will have a better sense of how to problem solve from doing the activity with baking when they get ready to try to figure out how to program.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. This was so much fun, and I learned a lot. So we will have it out on our Facebook page as well as on YouTube, and we look forward to the camp this summer. It's going to be really exciting, and we're looking to do this with you for the first time and see how we can keep doing it, and really keep educating parents on the importance of motor skills and handwriting in the beginning before starting to learn everything else.
I think it's
great.
Been so exciting. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate
the
opportunity.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time on our Fundanoodle 5. Bye.
Bye.